and happy Thanksgiving. And today, like Stephanie said, really is a good day after the Falcons win yesterday. And we're right back in the hunt again, for sure. I'm sure most of you would agree when you're giving a presentation, it's best not to say too much. When you do, you either lose people or it invites too many questions that you may not have the answer to. Okay? But Warwick has accomplished so much, his achievements need to be told. Warwick is a football legend, a philanthropist, great dad to Paxton and Lennox, and a good friend. His college football career began at that other school in Florida, FSU. The story goes like this. While Warwick was heavily recruited in high school, most everyone thought he would attend LSU as he grew up in Baton Rouge. Apparently, LSU told Warwick he would be a defensive back there, which was not Warwick's passion, as he loved being a running back. Bobby Bowden told Warwick that if he came to FSU, he would be given the opportunity to be a running back. But if it didn't work out, his role on the team would be in the defensive backfield. Well, of course, the rest is history. Warwick became the Seminoles' career leader in rushing yards, was 3 first-team All-ACC performer, and became the first back in the school's history to record 3 1,000-yard rushing seasons. And he accomplished all of this while assuming the role of the head of household for his 5 younger siblings after the tragic loss of his mother when he was 18 years old. In 1997, after graduating on time with a degree in information studies, Warwick was drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, 12th overall pick by Tampa Bay and the then general manager, Rich McKay. In his first season, he was named NFL Rookie of the Year by Sports Illustrated and designated Offensive Rookie of the Year by the Associated Press. Warwick would go on to play 5 seasons with the Buccaneers, 6 seasons with our Falcons, and then 1 final year with the Bucs. In addition to his accomplishments on the field, in 2005, Warwick received the prestigious Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, the only NFL award recognizing a player for his community service as well as his excellence on the field. Was inducted into the Falcons Ring of Honor in 2017 and became a limited partner in the Falcons in 2009. After football, Warwick turned his full-time attention to philanthropy and the Warwick Dunn Charities. In 1997, Warwick formed the Homes for the Holidays program to fulfill his mother's dream of home ownership for single-parent families. Homes for the Holidays will be celebrating its 25th anniversary this Friday, November 25th. Since its inception, the program has furnished 206 homes, provided over $1 million in down payment assistance, and served over 553 single parents and children. To know Warwick, you would never know that he accomplished so much at the youthful age of 47, as he really is a humble and non-pretentious guy. We love you, man. Thanks.
So Warwick, I think, and hopefully you remember this, but we first met in 2002. It was at Blue Ridge Grill. It was at a recruiting lunch. I actually sat next to you. And you decided to come to Atlanta. What made you, besides Rich McKay probably had a hand in that, but what? He wasn't here yet. Oh, that's right, Rich wasn't here. So what made you decide Atlanta?
Well, when I first came, just meeting Mr. Blank Arthur, we just had a lot of conversations about the community, giving back, and bringing a program to Atlanta, just the impact that he wanted to make here in Atlanta. And honestly, we didn't talk about football at all. He didn't And he showed me some plays when I went to you guys' home at the time. He showed me plays of myself blocking, not running, just blocking, so you could protect Mike Vick. But he was really...
He was running.
yeah, Mike was running at the time, so he didn't know I was going to run as well. But I just think his focus was really more about, things I was doing off the field, and just wanted me to really know how passionate he was about that. And that was one of the really like the big deciding factor.
So I have to ask, you grew up playing football. Did you always love football, or was football an opportunity to have a different life?
Well, I just love playing football. I started playing when I was 7 years old, and I played outside in the street. So I didn't want to fall and scrape myself. We dodged a lot of cars and those things playing. But that really helped me, I think, skill-wise with balance, just getting skinny in a hole and those type of things. So just over the course of time, I just really just grew to love it. And when I started playing, I was yay high, 7 years old, and I was the last kid picked. But after like 2 or 3 games, I was the first kid picked. No one could tackle me. So, then I just kept playing I idolized Tony Dorsett at the time because all we got is the Dallas Cowboys on television. The Saints had bags over their head. If you guys remember, they blacked out. So, just then I just really just grew. But I played basketball, baseball. I mean, if they'd had soccer when I was coming up, I'd have probably played that. So my mom just really wanted us to be active. And I ran track as well.
So you were, maybe a little shorter than the average running back.
Well, I was way shorter.
But it's worked to your advantage. And we had a conversation one time about how elusive you could be because of your size. And it helped you avoid injury, too. You didn't get plagued with a lot of the concussions that a lot of players did.
Well, no, thank God I never had a concussion. I didn't have a concussion. Being small, I was able to really hide behind the linemen. They were a lot bigger than me. So I did a lot of hiding. But when I did run, so you guys know, I always got down in the fetal position. Once I got hit and in the pile, I just balled up in the fetal position to protect myself. But I wasn't trying to give anybody a direct shot to hit me. That wasn't going to happen.
Are you letting your son play?
Oh, I'll let him play football. But today the kids, they want to play video games. Don't really want to practice. I'm just like, you got to get out there and play, have fun, be a kid, learn the game.
Well, speaking of being a kid, your childhood got interrupted. Mm-hmm. You were 18 when your mom, Betty, died. She was running as an off-duty police officer to guide or to protect someone who was making a night deposit, and there were some people lying in wait who shot her car up. And she was able to drive her car right to a nearby convenience store.
Well, she was working overtime at a grocery store, and the grocery store manager, they usually make a routine night deposit, and my mom would go through the exit so that the manager can just drop the money in the box. And 2 guys opened fire on the police car. My mom's in a uniform, and my mom, I think she was killed instantly. And the grocery store manager was able to put her foot on the gas and drive down the street to the Circle K that my mom used to always go to as well. So it was just a crazy night. And this happened 2 days after my 18th birthday. And, I got a phone call. Well, I go back, I'll tell you, I was talking to my mom at like 8:30 because I had to be responsible. I was the oldest of 6. Being responsible for those guys, I made sure that Mom, they ate, everyone did their homework, they took a bath, and, I'll just lay in your bed and wait till you get home. And I used to always do that. And I get a phone call about 12:30 that my mom had been shot from a family friend who was also a police officer. And I didn't really believe him at first, but he said, no, I'm coming to get you, get dressed, and do not wake everyone up, the other kids up. So I got dressed. He was there in 2 or 3 minutes. Then he took me to the hospital. And once I got to the hospital, he just took me into a room, and the police chief was on the phone. And I was like, hello? He's like, work, I'm sorry. We're going to do everything that we can to catch these guys who did this. And I was like, okay. I still had no idea what was going on. And then after a minute or two, hung up the phone. In the next room, I go in, and that's where I see police officers surrounding my mom's body on the table. And, you know, a little bit later, I was just really shocked and speechless a little bit. But then I also realized I was really there to identify the body for them. And, you know, after a while, you know, I just thought that, okay, I can't go crazy right now. My mom would want me to go back home and look after my brothers and sisters. So I just asked somebody to take me back home so that I can be with my brothers and sisters.
So right then, childhood ended. You became a caretaker for your 5 younger siblings. And what's unusual about the story is your family didn't get divided up. And that was partly due to your grandmother stepping in, and partly because you had the wisdom to see that you needed a home, right? And so explain how you were able to do that as an 18-year-old for your family.
Well, being a police officer, she had a life insurance policy, and I was the beneficiary, being the oldest. But also when I became 18, that I'm responsible for the younger ones. So I knew we weren't going to be split up because I just turned 18 years old. But doing that, you know, we were renting a house at the time, and the guy who owned the house, he didn't charge us rent. So I was just like, okay, we'll figure out where we're going to move to for a couple months. And just 2 or 3 months, I got the insurance policy, and then I just started looking for a place for us to live. And I found a place, and it wasn't the whole insurance policy, all of the money. And I went and just bought a home for us, and that's where we lived for about the next 10 years of our lives in Baton Rouge. And that home, and that's where they grew up. With my grandmother who moved in and sacrificed her life as well. So I took the insurance policy because that's something she wanted for us, is to create a stable environment, a place that we can call home. And for me, it was important that I try to replicate and emulate what my mom wanted, because growing up, I had these adult conversations with her about her dreams and things that she wanted, and I was just really trying to fulfill my mom's dream at that time.
So when you went on to FSU, you got a degree there, but when we were talking, you said you wished you had gotten a financial degree. Is that in part because of what you've learned since with the families you've served? I mean, why do you wish you had gotten that financial degree?
Well, I was really good with numbers. I love numbers. And back then, because technology was starting to really blow up and come around, programming, you know, cell phones had just really started coming out. So I just wanted to say, okay, let me get along this wave and do that. But once I started playing football, I didn't have time to really go and program. It spent a lot of time, and I was taking these math classes that eventually we didn't even use numbers. We was using pluses and minuses. I'm just like, this is crazy. So, you know, at times I just wish that I would have got a finance degree, because early on I learned how to manage money. I had to, being the oldest, and I had to make sure that we spent money on need, not necessarily things that we wanted. And from that, I became really good at managing money, and I just felt like if I got a finance degree, I could have managed some other people's money and made money and all those things. So, you know,
well,
managing dollars.
You did go on to get your MBA from Emory.
I did, and that was rough in the beginning. And one of the reasons that I went back to school, I asked Rich McKay, what do you think if I go and get my MBA? He thought that would be really good, but I really went to earn the respect of all of my partners. When I became a limited partner in 2009, I mean, they were all successful businessmen. I'm just finished playing football. I really wanted to learn business acumen and the terminology. And I did an internship here too with Pepsi to get out in the field, really understand the day-to-day what individuals go through, but I was really doing it to earn my partner's respect. So Brian didn't know that, but.
Well, it's interesting.
You also earned the faculty's respect. I must say, you did yourself proud at Emory.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it, learned a lot, developed a lot of relationships, and I took a nice trip to South Africa too, so it's pretty cool.
So you grew up without a father in your life, or your biological father in your life. I know
Right.
you had a mentor, but one of the things that we also talked about this with that 80% of men in jail come from fatherless homes.
Right.
So I know that that's something that's been very important to you. But talk a little bit about the father figure you did have in your life and how that's affected how you parent your own children.
Well, when I was 10 years old, I met this guy. His name is Malin Brooks. He was my little league coach. He coached me in football and in the track and field. And he was someone that early on, he really took me under his wing and just was always there for me. And he challenged me all the time. He said, you have to be this type of individual, this type of brother to your younger brothers and sisters. You have to set the example. And for years, I just sit there and I just listened. And I started, because he was my coach. I mean, back then, we can catch whoopings at practice if you didn't do this or that. I mean, today you can't hit kids, but he used to whoop us out on the football field. Right. But it's someone that I just, over the years, just really grew in respect, and I treated him like he was my biological father. And when he said something, I did it. I mean, I respect my elders. And, he was just someone that has stuck with me through, my entire life, and he's still around today. Unfortunately, he's bedridden. So now when I go back home, I have to go and I see him. He hadn't been outside in 2 years and those things. So he's someone that's near and dear to my heart that I'm so thankful. But what I learned is that not just from the experience with Pops, who's Choo Choo, but also with Homes for the Holidays, understanding that what kids are missing sometimes is the balance of both parents in their lives. I mean, if it's just swayed one side, you have boys especially, and then also girls, they don't have that balance of emotion, but also that discipline. A lot of times, our young boys are really missing that. And I was just, I think, lucky and thankful that, I had my pops in my life, but I grew up in a police car. I mean, so I knew what it was like to be locked in the back seat.
So I want everybody to understand, because Betty was a single mom. Access to childcare was a real struggle, just
We didn't
like
have
it is.
that. Honestly,
Right.
we didn't have access to
So they rode in the back seat of the car.
police car. And we weren't supposed to do that, so we used to go to lights. She sees someone else, we had to lay down, we had to hide. I mean, we did that for a while, but, at home, we used to lock ourselves up in the handcuffs, and we would have to wait till my mother got home to get out. So it's just like, it taught me, like, that's not where I want to go. So I want to stay on the straight and narrow. But, it's just all those lessons that I think early on, just really understanding what she wanted for us and her dream for her kids. I mean, that really kept me on the straight and narrow.
So one of the things, though, that the loss of your mom and the fact that you were thrust into this role of provider, caretaker, in some ways brother and dad to your siblings, was that you didn't address the loss for years.
Right.
In fact, it wasn't until you became a Falcon and had a fellow player talk about their therapist.
Yeah.
So, I think that mental health for men, and particularly black men, can be an issue. So can you talk a little bit about your journey through that and what that's meant?
Yeah, so in 2003, Sean Jefferson, who was a receiver at the time, he was just in the locker room talking to the guys. He was just, hey man, this guy, he went to counseling, receiver, he went to counseling just to catch the ball. And I thought it's like, to catch the ball? I mean, that's crazy. I can play football in my sleep. And, I just took that story though, and later on that night I talked to a friend on the phone, and I said, I heard the story today, this guy said them, and I was like, what if I did that for myself? And so can you help me find a counselor? And like a week later, I had a counselor that I can call, and I called to make an appointment. And so I scheduled an appointment, and then I told him, I said, I don't want to come through the front door. Can I come through the back? You know, I play football. I'm the running back of the Falcons. I don't want anybody to see me, you know, because it's just a negative, it was a negative perception that, you know, one, not just being black, but being a football player, being a man, that we're supposed to be strong and tough. And I didn't want anyone to see me. So they actually accommodated me when I went to counseling. And I went through the back. They gave me a code. I opened the door. They said, go into this room. Just wait there until the counselor comes. And I went, did all that, and the counselor came. In my first session, I just cried for 45, 50 minutes, not really understanding that I was holding a lot of pain inside. And you got to think that was 10 years after my mom had passed. So I never mourned. I didn't, you know, really grieve. I had to be strong for my brothers and sisters. And, you know, from that, you know, I never really looked at the counselor for, you know, the first couple of years. I looked at everything around the room. I can tell you every book she had on the shelf and everything. But once I became much more confident, you could probably see on the football field, that's when I was throwing the ball up in the air, running around, acting crazy. I was just like feeling free. And then towards, in like 2006 and 7, I just didn't care what anyone thought anymore. I'm gonna talk about going to counseling, and if I can say, hey, I did something to help myself be better, maybe I can help someone else. And that was really more my goal, to give individuals the courage to actually come out and say, hey, I need help. And I did that, and, you know, I'm blessed. But it also took me on a journey that I actually wanted to go and see the guy who shot and killed my mom. You know, because I had all of these questions. I was just really searching for answers. And from that, you know, I asked my counselor, do you think I'm in a position to go and see this guy? And she felt like that I was. So I made an arrangement to go see the guy in Angola prison in Louisiana. And when I got to the gate, the warden told me that, oh, he's not going to admit that he did it. And I said, that's okay. I'm here for my own personal reasons. But I went in and we sat around a table just like this. I mean, he was in an orange jumpsuit and I was just sitting across from him. And, you know, he knew a lot about my family and my brothers and sisters when they were in college and stuff. And the first thing he said is that I didn't do it. And I said, okay, all right. And I just let him talk for a few minutes. And then I told him, you know what? I'm here to tell you that I forgive you. Doesn't matter what you say, I'm saying I'm here to forgive you. You've had all this power over my life for years. You controlled my emotions. I never wanted to hold hands with anyone. I was just so over it that I wanted to take that power back from him. And by being there, and I was really able to express myself, what my brothers and sisters, how they felt, how I felt, and just wanted to take that power back. And I felt a lot of release just being there, being able to talk to him about how this affected me, and, you know, it just put me on a better journey in life.
So the other part of this story, which I think is fascinating and has led to a lot of the work that you're doing nationally, is about policing. Your mother was a police officer, but yet you, as a black man in Georgia, have been profiled.
Yes.
And so you've seen both sides of this issue. Can you talk about the work you're doing and what you have seen as well?
Well, you know, years ago, I was just driving on the highway and other cars were flying past me. I was in I think my Cayenne, and they stopped to pull me over and just say I looked like someone who would be smuggling drugs. I'm just like, what? So they pulled me over, searched my car, and you know, I felt, you know, a certain way. I just said, hey, listen, my mom was a police officer. You know, they didn't really even care. But just over the years, you know, I really started to understand, and now I've been on a national council of policing and race in the country over the last 2 years, just really working on how can we improve relationships with police officers, but also how can we have better policing and, you know, community policing and those things. And those are things that I've been really just trying to work on, and like how can we stop these senseless police stops and really do things to impact the community in a positive way. And I support police officers, I always will. There's good cops and there's some bad cops. And we've really been working on how can we weed out those cops, but also give the cops the support that they need. And I think they're also overworked, they're stressed, so they're gonna make certain decisions in certain situations, but the mental health of those guys also, they need that support. So I want to make sure they have everything they need to be the best police officers that they need. But at the same time, everyone wants to be treated equally.
So in the final couple of minutes before we open it up to questions, you have now done, I think it's 206?
We're up to, so you guys know Ron was wrong. We celebrate 25 years tomorrow, actually. We're up to 206 homes, and we're going to do 2 homes tomorrow. We'll be up to 208 tomorrow. So celebrating 25 years, 208 families in 16 states. So it's been.
So So in the spirit of Thanksgiving, and I know these families that receive these homes are extraordinarily thankful for what you do, but what would you want everyone to know about the families that you're serving? Because I think sometimes there can be misconceptions about that. What do you know about them? What are their struggles? What do they need?
Well, over the last 25 years, I've learned a lot about a lot of the issues, because you got to think, my mom, her issue was she worked 24/7. She only made $36,000. She couldn't save up money for a down payment. If she could she fully furnish the home? We didn't have assets to leverage to get approved for a loan. So it's a lot of issues that families, low-income families, deal with. And what we try to do is educate them on the opportunity. These are the things that are for you out there. If you have to go and do it, you got to participate. And we really try to support families more holistic. We have a financial literacy program. It's called Count on Your Future, where we assist them. We tell them, hey, once you finish the course, if you invest in yourself, we will match you up to $500. So if you put $500 in a savings account, you have access to $500, but also access to a financial advisor for at least 2 years to work on planning and budgeting, spending money on need. And I really focus more on, lately, the needs versus want scenario. We have that program, and we don't just work with parents. We also now looking at the teens, the kids. We want to teach financial responsibility early on in life. And we also have a program that's called SCOPE. It's a healthy food initiative that we try to educate families on quick and healthy meals. I mean, growing up in my household, my grandmother, she started cooking at like 8 o'clock in the morning, wasn't finished till like 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was dinner. So she started early, and parents don't have time to cook full meals. And I want parents to always buy fast food? They're spending a lot of money on that. If you actually grow your vegetables in your backyard, cook at home, you're managing your money a lot better, and the food lasts a lot longer. And we also have a program now, Hearts for Community Service, where we're trying to help individuals who are on that path to college to get their degree, but also, they're impacting their community, giving back as well. So those are our 3 programs that we have. And recently I relaunched this program named after my mom called Betty's Hope, where it's a mental health program where now we're trying to really support kids in the school system. We're actually going to the schools during the day to do mental health group peer counseling sessions with the kids. And this is like a 6 to 8 week program where we're really trying to give them coping skills so that when they go back in their community and their environment, they can rely on the things that we taught them. And this is really focusing on individuals who don't have access to counseling and those things. So we're really just trying to impact the community in a positive way. And the video talked about I started building housing for families. And the good thing about that is that we don't just work with single parent families. We work with two-parent houses. We just want to help individuals, whoever wants to get a home, and it's workforce and low income. So we're not just focused on a certain demographic. We want individuals, we want to build diverse communities. So healthy mind, healthy body, we'll have a healthier society overall, and that's really more my goal.
So we're going to open it up to some questions, and while we do, I'm going to ask Helen Price to come to the podium. She's going to give us a closing benediction today, but we'll open it up to a few questions. Does anybody have one for Warwick? Do you have a question? No? Do you play football?
Practice.
You do play football? What position? Cornerback. Oh, the Falcons could probably sign you.
Today they could. I'm just messing with you. Practice.
Maybe Warwick comment on how you think social media is affecting the players today.
Well, I think there are most players.
The question was, how is social media impacting players?
Players, yeah. I think I grew up where I don't really care what anyone else say. I drop a ball, fumble. I just like, okay, that's just life. They're more focused on what the opinion of individuals, what they think of them, and that affects them mentally and emotionally, and it really impacts them on the football field. I just grew up that, if you were as good as I was, you'd be out here playing. So why are you really focused on someone who is just, people talk trash all the time. That's just what it is. I'm used to I'm a little different, but I don't really focus on outside noise. I try to just stay focused on the thing, and I wish more players would just stay focused on their craft and not focus on outside noise.
Doug, and then Jeff.
Warwick, what do you think about the whole NIL name? What do you think about the whole NIL name, image, likeness, availability that college athletes have now, and how do you think that will affect the game in the future?
Well, I wish they had that when I was playing. Let me just tell you. But I think it's pluses and minuses to it. Sometimes I think it hurts the game because kids sometimes today, they don't go through any adversity. If they don't like the coach, if something happens, they go into the portal and they leave. And do they really learn that you can get through adversity? It's going to take a little bit, but you need to go through that to really define who you are as an individual. And today, it's great that they're actually to profit off of their name and likeness. I think that's important. But are we also teaching them to manage the money early on? If they're driving nicer cars than their parents and those things, I don't think we're really doing a good job of getting them ready for the rest of their lives. So my advice to them would be, if you're going to make this money, think about the next 20, 30, 40 years of life. What type of life you want to live, right? You need to really think long-term and plan for that. But I just think they're going to need to put a cap on it, I would say, because if you just have, 3 or 4 schools who can just give, X amount of dollars, you're not making it fair for everyone else. So I think, they're going to eventually have to put a cap on it. But I think it's good. I wish I may just go get back pay. I'm going to work on that.
Jeff.
Yeah. Warwick, you got an MBA from us at Emory. Keith Marshall, who used to be part of that Gershel thing at UGA with Todd Gurley, just got an MBA. But what are your views about one and done in basketball? Maybe why don't they let people from high school go right to the pros? But is that in their best interest? And I think in college football, it's 2 years. What are your views about, is it better for young persons to be told to go to college for a few years? Is it let them go off and make money while they can? What do we do with that whole situation?
Well, from playing in college and playing in pros is night and day, honestly. You're still growing and maturing from high school to college. So I think football-wise, you definitely need to go to college. And I don't think you can, it's 3 years. You have to be a junior before you can go. Basketball is a little bit different. I think guys should go to college, get the experience, work on, start your path to getting a degree. It's important that you get a degree. My mom no one in my family ever graduated from college, so I wanted to be the first to set the example for my younger brothers and sisters. So I think it's important to do that, but not everybody is mentally and physically able to go to the next level. LeBron James, he's a lot different than other guys, and you've seen other guys who've gone from high school to the pros just hadn't really panned out in basketball. So it's really, that's situational, but I would advise individuals to at least go to college for a year or two basketball-wise.
Dallas.
Yeah, Warwick, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what Deion Sanders is doing at Jackson State and the HBCUs and its impact on football.
Well, Deion being a Seminole, I support him. I know he's really trying to change the culture. He's done, I think, really well over the last 2 years. And, but his challenge is going to be, are you going to get enough guys who can come to HBCUs? I mean, that's really going to change the landscape of, college football, that, black colleges are the same as Division I schools. I mean, I think that's his biggest challenge. But I think he's giving individuals an opportunity on all levels that no matter where you go, if you do your part, if you're a really good player, you should be noticed and get the opportunity. So, I mean, I hope he continues to be successful. Will he be there long term? I doubt it, but,
Is there any question left? If not, I'm going to ask Helen to come and give us our benediction, and then
one more question.
Oh, one more question. Oh, Benji.
Yes. So I'm a former college athlete as well as you are. So I wanted to see, I'm 27 now, so I'm transitioning from obviously playing to in the business world now. So what traits do you think carried over very well in your business and philanthropic life, and what didn't? What was different in the football field and now in your business world?
You can't tackle people you don't get along with.
Well, you can still make a miss, though. You can still. Well, I think, teamwork, a lot of times you don't realize that when like right now, I can't do it on my own. For me to be successful in what I do, even with the charity, I have to have a really good team around me. So football has taught me a lot of teamwork, but you have to sacrifice. We all have to sacrifice something to take steps forward. I think sacrifice, the commitment to sports is probably a driving force in business, because you have to be committed to the cause and those things. So those basic principles have really helped me as well. But I grew up, I was a rebel. I always went against the grain because, being small, they doubted me a lot, and I would constantly had to prove myself, right? So I think a lot of those characteristics really helped me move forward in life, but it's also challenged me to stay within my comfort zone, and sometimes you got to step out and try something new. And I've been able to really balance it out, and you try some things, you're successful, and other things just like, well, that doesn't work, let me try another route. So it helps you be creative, but you utilize all those skills, those tools that you've learned from sports, teamwork, sacrifice, commitment, and just looking out for one another. I think we utilize all that stuff.
So Helen's going to give the benediction, because I know if I ask you to thank Warren, you all start clapping, you all leave. So don't do that yet. So we'll thank him as soon as Helen's finished.
Thank you. I've been invited to pronounce the benediction today, and although I'm not a religious leader, and feel undeserving of this honor, but since we had the good fortune to hear a message of leadership, compassion, and commitment to make the world a better place, I figure I can't do much harm. So here goes. We leave today with a message of hope and inspired to help. And as we gather with family and friends on Thanksgiving Day, are to simply give thanks in quiet solitude. May God bless and keep you and yours during this holiday and every day.
Amen. Please join me in thanking Warwick Dunn.